Welcome. Today is part 2 of my 3-part series of emotional wounds, healing emotional wounds, why it's so difficult to heal emotional wounds. So yesterday, if you missed yesterday's part 1, I invite you and encourage you to go back and watch that, because that is all about recognizing and accepting the emotional wounds that happened or that may still be happening, and knowing the physical and mental symptoms that happen when emotional abuse is taking place in your life. So moving on to part 2 today, I'd like to discuss why so many people struggle to heal emotional wounds. And, I've been asked if it's even possible, because it can feel so heavy, and often you just lose all energy, when we are weighed down with these emotional scars and wounds, right? You can sometimes not want to get out of bed. It has real physical scars, like we talked about yesterday in part 1, where you might have migraines, you might have nausea and vomiting, you might have just real fatigue where it's hard to even move your limbs. So it does manifest in physical ways as well as in anxiety and depression. So how do we heal? And that's what I want to talk to you about today, because that's the important part, is kind of overcoming this heavy emotional burden that is put on us through trauma. So if you have experienced these things, if you've experienced trauma, you may have been cut down and made to believe that you were worthless. And perhaps somewhere in that process, you gave up on yourself. So what happens in that process is you self-abandon yourself, and you may not even have realized that. This may have happened way back in childhood, or it may have happened in adulthood or somewhere along the lines. And even in subconscious mind, you might be ashamed, you might feel guilty, you might feel embarrassed, or you might just not want to deal with it. You might just want to put it behind you because it was just a horrible moment in your life. And so what happens is we don't want to face those horrible emotions, and so we stuff them down and suppress them. But the fact is, no one can hurt us as bad as we can hurt ourselves. We are, in fact, our biggest critic. As much as that seems counterproductive and counterintuitive, it is a fact. We are harder on ourselves than anyone else can ever be on us. And so that keeps us from healing unless we face our emotions, unless we go within ourselves. It's impossible to heal. And that's what keeps so many people stuck. So when we think of abandonment wounds, rejection wounds, we think of it as an external source, right? We think of it as being rejected or left by someone else. But the ironic part is we're often abandoning ourselves. We're rejecting ourselves. We're giving up on ourselves because other people made us feel less than. Other people made us feel we weren't worthy. And so we came to believe those things. We adopted that belief system. And that belief system is no longer serving us. We may have given up on our dreams. We may have given up on joy. We may have even given up on life. But there's more, okay? So, ignoring your needs and wants, saying yes when you want to say no, seeking external validation, isolating yourself, being afraid to ask for help because you don't feel like you are deserving, or you don't want to ask too much of other people. Suppressing your feelings, your desires, and your own needs. Serving others before you serve yourself. These are all signs that you are abandoning yourself, or you have abandoned yourself. Okay, so how do we come back home to ourselves? How do we stop abandoning ourselves and heal? 1, set some boundaries. But the key to setting boundaries is to enforce those boundaries. That shows people that you respect yourself. But how do you respect yourself when you've abandoned yourself all this time? You have to kind of do the inner engineering. You've got to set your positive affirmations every day. You've got to journal. You've got to practice self-compassion, right? Quiet that inner critic, that little voice in your head that says you can't do it, you're not good enough, because you are. That's the past belief system that you've got to put to rest and create a new belief system that now serves where you are in your life today and where you want to go in the future. I know it can seem heavy. It's a lot, but you are worth it. And that's where you need to change that inner engineering, that belief system, to tell yourself you are worth it. You are. You have to practice self-love and raise your self-esteem. And we're going to get to the self-esteem part in part 3 of this series tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But practicing self-love, let's go back to that for a moment. If you're not ready to look in the mirror and say, I love you to yourself yet, because that can be a really hard thing to do if it seems really foreign and it seems like you're lying to yourself, maybe try a different script for now. Try a baby step. So for now, look in the mirror and say, I am worthy of love. If that's not working for you yet, say, I desire to be loved. There's always a baby step. We can get there with baby steps. But we have to change that programming in the mind. okay? We have to come back home to ourselves. We have to learn to love ourselves and accept ourselves where we are. Because when we abandoned ourselves, we can't heal the past trauma. And in order to heal those emotional wounds and come back to a place of contentment and joy, that is our innate state. That's the state we were born in, and that is the state that we are intended to live with. And we get there by healing the abandonment wound, but not the external abandonment wound, the internal abandonment wound. So that's my tip for the day. Stand by tomorrow, tune back in tomorrow for how to raise self-esteem, build self-esteem. And, all things are possible when you believe. And no matter what you've been told in past programming, we're going to reprogram, just like you reprogram a computer or anything else, our belief system. So thank you so much for joining. Comment, let's get involved in a conversation together. I appreciate you so much. In case no one has told you yet today, you are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed. If you haven't yet, just hit that little button. Comment, tell me where you're from. I would like to learn more about everyone as the channel is growing. I am currently living in Arizona, but I was born and raised in Ohio. So this has been a big, exciting year for me to change locations. And I want to know more about you. Thank you.